Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to FUgameCrue today. This is a very special episode brought to you by Carbomud's new energy drink line of Slippery Sips.
That'll get you through the hour, even the day.
And by law, we're required to tell you that this is a paid advertisement. We're receiving compensation for this.
Also, by law, we are required to tell you that the CEO of Carbomud, Harris Oates, is a sex offender. We're not going to go into the specifics of the crimes he's committed, but they are sexual.
Well, gee, Shane, now that we got all that Lego mumbo-jumbo out of the way, this is our personal top 10 2D platformers list.
And that means personal. If we haven't played it, how could it be on the list?
There's a lot of good ones we haven't played, so don't get pissed at us, or get pissed at us. Just leave those comments below.
Yeah, tell me about how much you hate me and my family and you want to see me dead.
A 2D platformer is the most tried and true way to have fun while playing a video game. Sure, these super badass and key adventures in 3 dimensions are great and all, but stuff like that usually requires hours of your time, so if you really just want to play a game for like 20 minutes or so, then 2D platformers are the way to go. Well, that and like high-score type of games, such as Pac-Man and Tetris. But fuck you! Today we're talking about 2D platformers, and like every other top 10 list on the internet, we're only gonna do one game per franchise. Even though we've broken that rule with literally every list we've made. But we mean it this time. Also, what we're looking for doesn't necessarily mean a game has to be 2D and have platforming in it. The goal for every game on this list has to be as follows. Move in one direction, usually left to right, and make it to the end of the goal or what have you. Sorry, Metroid. Now, without further ado...
Let's do it.
Number 10!
Oh god, I wish you guys could see this. Wario Land's the best game on Virtual Boy. Well, maybe Jack Bros, but Wario Land's definitely the best platformer.
Hopefully this is the last time we use this joke, but in all seriousness, I actually enjoyed playing this as a kid, and it's one of the first games I managed to finish on my own. Not many people give this game a lot of praise, mainly because nobody's willing to play it long enough to give it a fair chance without getting head or neck pains, but I gave it another go around just to be sure I wanted it on this list. And yep, it's a firm decision. Furthermore, nobody involved in the production of this video is sorry for that.
Number 9!
Within the past couple decades or so, Sonic games can be hit or miss, and people that hate the blue blur will tell you that his Genesis games were overrated. And well, even though I do like his 16-bit adventures, I'd have to agree that they're not as good as people remember. Except for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That game ripped copious amounts of ass all over the place. Filled with cool power-ups, 3 playable characters, each with their own pros and cons, and probably the best graphics on the Genesis. Sonic 3 and Knuckles really pushed blast processing to the limits, and it was such a massive game that it took 2 cartridges to fit the entire thing. Also, this game beats the other Sonic titles out because the actual platforming to be done in this game is the best in the series, and the speed sections aren't bad either, with a good balance between the two. And the bonus stages are based on skill rather than memorization, as opposed to Sonic's 1 and 2. Furthermore, Michael Jackson may or may not have made the music to it. How do we not know for sure whether or not this is true? All I know is that the music sounds exactly like Michael Jackson, with the exception of Ice Cap Zone, that actually sounds like Hard Times by the Jetsons. Seriously, look it up, it's weird. But every other song in this game sounds exactly like something Michael Jordan made, so fuck my ass and call me a bitch. The King of Poop definitely composed this soundtrack.
Number 8.
Ninja Gaiden or Gaiden? It's Gaiden. This game is one of the better games on the NES, and it has a bad reputation for being brutally hard. But I've beaten it before, and the only part about the game that was excessively hard was the bullshit at the end where it sends you back 3 levels if you die in the final boss, which was actually a glitch that was intentionally left in the game. I'd show you the footage here, but this is a quick entry on the list, and it'll take me like an hour or 2 just to get to that part of the game. And unless it's DS or 3DS footage, I try not to steal gameplay footage from other YouTubers, so fuck it. I probably shouldn't have done a voiceover telling you about all that, nor should I have done a voiceover calling myself out on the unnecessary voiceover, since neither of them have anything to do with this game. But yeah, Ninja Gaiden provides a pretty fair challenge with some bullshit here and there, but it's still very doable and extremely rewarding. And the cutscenes are damn impressive for an NES game. Not that it makes it a better platformer, but it's definitely worth noting since it makes it more enjoyable overall. And I haven't beaten Ninja Gaiden 2 or 3, so Ninja Gaiden 1 gets the number 8 spot.
Number 7!
Little Samson. You know what they say, if something costs a lot of money, then it's always worth it.
Did you really put this on the list just because you paid up the ass for it? Fuck you!
Oh, come on, it's good, really!
Okay, this game's definitely not worth the asking price it's going for on eBay, which I won't say because it'll just make the video feel dated whenever the price fluctuates. But if you forget about how much this game costs and take it for what it's worth, you're in for a real treat. Speaking of treats, we already made a video on Little Samson, so that gives us an excuse to be lazy on this entry. If you want to know more about how we feel about this game, then you should watch our video on it by clicking here. Eh? But, Little Samson really is one of the best platformers and games in general on the NES. Featuring 4 interchangeable playable characters, each with special abilities, a dream team of rebellious ex-Capcom employees, perfect controls, and outstanding gameplay. You should definitely find some way to play this game if you like platformers, and if you don't want to blow your dad's trust fund like I did, then just get an emulator and play it for free since there isn't a legal way to download it for some reason. I guess whoever owns the rights to Taito just doesn't like money.
Number 6.
Kirby's Adventure. Just because a game's on the easy side doesn't mean it's bad. And this particular Kirby game is one of the final games coming out on the NES, being released 2 years after the Super Nintendo was already out, sending Nintendo's 8-bit console out with a bang. It's probably the most graphically impressive and one of the best sounding games on the console as well, with all sorts of nice looking colors, cool effects for the time, and it's just really imaginative and charming. This is the second game in the Kirby series, but the first one that had him using his infamous copy ability, which made the game interesting the entire way through, giving you all kinds of cool and sometimes unnecessary power-ups along the way. And having cool boss fights and bonus games doesn't hurt either. Plus, it's cool to have a platformer on the NES with a save feature. What else can we say? Kirby sure does suck.
Number 5.
Yoshi's Woolly World. I just made a video on this very recently, but we already used the Go Watch Our Other video card once in this countdown, and this isn't a playlist. But seriously, if you want to hear us talk about this game more, then click here. Anywho, if you've never played a game in the Yoshi series, then you're missing out. These games are a lot of fun because you can create your own difficulty, and if you're just trying to make it to the end of the level, then they're even easier than Kirby games, but if you try to get 100%, then it could be a complete nightmare. That is, unless you're playing Yoshi's Woolly World for the Wii U, which cuts the frustrating bullshit out of the equation. It's just the most fun in the series, and definitely the most graphically impressive and charming, even more so than the original somehow. I know I use the word charming a lot, but look at this! Aww. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy Yoshi's Island, I just think of it as if it were my son going through his rebellious phase in high school. It pisses me off so bad over some stupid bullshit all the time, but at the end of the day, I still love it to death. I just think Yoshi's Woolly World's a little better.
I need to tend to my cow garden. Number 4.
Mega Man and Mega Man X are technically 2 different series, but we're already leaving gold off this list, so we're just gonna do one Mega Man game. And to me, the best game in the franchise would be Mega Man 9. In order to appreciate this game as much as it deserves, you need to stop fingering your ass with your nostalgia gloves. If you try not to hold on to the idea that Mega Man's 2 and 3 are untouchable, then you'll realize Capcom took everything great about the classic games and put them all in this digital-only main series entry.
This game is my favorite because, much like Mega Man 6, there's no cheap bullshit. And although the bosses have very beatable patterns with just the Mega Buster, about half of them provide a pretty good challenge, and more importantly, they're all fair. Every single special weapon in this game is useful, as opposed to some of the Mega Man games where you find yourself only using 1 or 2 here and there. Also, it was a pretty bold move not to include sliding or charge shots. A change that really simplified the gameplay, but for the Mega Man series, I've always preferred things to be kept simple. And even though I did like the slide ability, I didn't mind having to part ways with it. The music is as good as ever, and so is the level design. Since there's a lot of history and experience with the series at this point, they knew how to keep the challenge up and the bullshit down. The length of the game is perfect, and even if you take nostalgia into consideration, this game is very nostalgic. For years, I've literally wished that they would make another 8-bit Mega Man game, but obviously I never expected that they'd actually do it. There's a cheesy story with some charming 8-bit cutscenes, and you even have the option to turn the flickering on or off. I mean, is that nostalgic or what? So any way I look at it, this game is easily my favorite in the numbered series.
The fact that this game even exists in its 8-bit graphical style is a miracle in itself. Now, if only Capcom would stop being dicks and release this on a physical copy with Mega Man 10 included, my dumbass would buy it again. Just like I did with the next entry on our list.
Number 3.
Shovel Knight. I hate when people say games aren't as good as they used to be. How are they not? You have all kinds of crazy-ass adventures with big open worlds and tons of depth, and not only are those same kinds of games you loved playing 20 years ago still being made, but I dare say they're better than ever. And Shovel Knight is proof of that.
The 8-bit graphical style and chiptune soundtrack were beautifully executed, but there's so much more to this game going on than just the graphics and music. That's really only there to draw you into the kind of game you're getting into, which combines elements from the best games of the NES era. The kind folks over at Yacht Club really perfected everything that their forefather developers pioneered, but I do wish they included some English to tickle our nostalgia holes a little more. But that has less to do with making reasonable demands of the developer and more to do with me just being an asshole. I also like that there aren't any obvious tutorials. The game teaches you how to play and what you can and can't do with the level design. The controls are what I would consider perfect, and there's tons of challenge to be had without getting too overwhelming or frustratingly difficult like some of the games Shovel Knight got inspiration from. You won't find any cheap deaths in this game, and if you die, then it was probably your fault. Unless you were distracted by a microwaved hot dog that got misplaced in your butt for some reason. It's nice being able to play something that recreates the past while leaving the bullshit out that plagued so many older games. What else can we say about Shovel Knight? Everything about this game has already been said like 10 or 15 times.
Number 2! It's coming.
When it comes to 2D platforming, it doesn't get much better than the classic Donkey Kong Country trilogy on the Super Nintendo. Or does it? Honestly, as great as the classic trilogy was, we think if you take nostalgia out of the equation, Tropical Freeze is just an ass hair better than what Rare did 20 years ago. I feel like such a dick for letting the newer games on this list beat the older ones out as often as I am, but I'm not gonna lie to you. This game just oozes creativity and imagination with some very clever level design and variety in gameplay. Normally, stages that change the gameplay up feel like the developers were messing around in their spare time and threw random little pet projects into bigger games just to have them live forever, but the rocket and minecart levels are so intense and fun they make me pee blood. I even got some in my eye, it kinda sucked. Normally, I don't compare Retro's Donkey Kong games with the Rare trilogy on the Super Nintendo since the mechanics and controls are way different, but since we're doing one game per franchise, comparing them and being forced to choose was inevitable. I know it's blasphemy to not choose nostalgia on the Super Nintendo over the Wii U, but Tropical Freeze just had way more moments in it that blew me away, even as a jaded adult who's seen everything in games. It was a pretty tough call to make since one of my fondest childhood memories was being completely surprised on Christmas morning to see Donkey Kong Country after my parents told me they weren't getting it for me because they didn't have enough money. It was literally the best Christmas ever and the very first game that I finished all the way through, but I can't lie and say that Retro didn't raise the bar. Granted, Rare laid the groundwork down and raised the bar themselves for 2D platformers before it, but Retro managed to top it with this one. Again, just by an ass hair. And besides, David Weiss returned to the series to make the soundtrack, and it's so good it'll knock you out of any depression. Seriously, if your entire family got slaughtered by a masked madman, just listen to this soundtrack and you'll feel better instantly. And don't be a dingus and say this game doesn't qualify as 2D since it has tiny bits at 2.5D. If you're not down with 2.5D, then I'll give you 2.5 inches of my D if you know what I mean. Wait, no!
Number 1! My final form!
Okay, obviously number 1 was gonna be a Mario game, but which 2D Mario game was the best in the series? Everybody's top 2 choices usually comes down to Super Mario 3 and Super Mario World. But what about the original? Nah, fuck that. Don't get me wrong, it was great when it came out and still holds up today, not to mention it single-handedly saved the video game industry, but it wasn't the high point in the series and things definitely got better after that. How about Super Mario 2? Not the Japanese version, that one sucked ass, but the American version. Sure, it's the black sheep of the series, but we probably could have included Doki Doki Panic on this list as its own entry.
We actually considered it.
Well, no, we didn't. You considered it. I had nothing to do with any of this.
Or what about an entry from the new Super Mario Bros. Series? Oh, come on, they're all good. Play through it and try to tell me you didn't have fun. As for Super Mario Maker, it's technically a creation game rather than a 2D platformer, so it basically comes down to 3 in world. Super Mario 3 pushed the NES to its limits and was a huge improvement over the original game and had iconic power-ups, a variety in different worlds not only graphically but for gameplay as well.
Classic tunes, tighter control, and Karibo's shoe that only appears in one level for some reason, but somehow that makes it more interesting.
But what about Super Mario World? Mario 3 raised the bar for the NES, but Super Mario World was the first game on this thing. And it really showed what this new system could do and why it was worth the upgrade. Besides the game's graphics and sound being groundbreaking, the stages had replayability once you dispersed the secret colored blocks throughout the world and found the hidden exits that led to bonus levels. And there's even more bonus stages later on that are hard as shit, which is cool that this game can challenge you if you still want more, whereas Mario 3 is pretty easy all the way to the end. And let's not forget the most important thing, Yoshi. Sure, there's fewer power-ups in this game, but every power-up that is here is pretty cool. And while Yoshi's technically not considered a power-up, he definitely doubles the amount of fun to be had in this game. It never gets old to eat enemies and digest them instantly. Yeah, Kirby can do that, but Yoshi will shit mushrooms out from time to time, just like me. Can Kirby do that? Yeah, I didn't think so. That's why he's at number 6 on this list. But before this video becomes a Mario 3 vs Super Mario World video, even though it kinda just did, which game deserves the top spot? Super Mario All-Stars and World, duh! Not only does it have Super Mario World on there, but 16-bit remakes of Mario's 1 through 3. Plus the shitty Japanese version of Mario 2 that nobody played for more than 5 minutes. I know there's compilations out there for Mega Man, Sonic, and Kirby, but those games were just copy and pasted onto discs as opposed to being full-on remakes. Even though Super Mario World was technically copy-pasted into Super Mario All-Stars. Fine then, regular Super Mario All-Stars is number 1. But it's really not. I know Mega Man had Wily Wars on the Genesis, but honestly, it's just more fun to play those games on the NES instead. And if you're wondering why Ninja Gaiden on the NES is on this list by itself, but Ninja Gaiden Trilogy, a 16-bit remake of Ninja Gaidens 1 through 3, wasn't, it's because that game's very rare. And if a game's rare on the Super Nintendo...
Then they're expensive, put them back.
Well, Karen, what about little Samson, this has got to be worth at least 1,000 copies of Billy Madison on VHS.
Well, thanks for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with us? Are you pissed that we left Castlevania off the list? We never played it. What do you want us to say?
I tried. It's hard.
It is hard. It's fun, but it's a personal list. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always,